Dumelang mangwanani malelepo vukenjani kwas vadave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. It's the last day of January and you're joined by Ashwin Berry and Aina Raisakweyo.
Happy Monday, everyone. Today is Backwards Day, the day where the world gets turned upside down and inside out, and madness becomes sanity and day becomes night. Well, at least in concept. There's just too much seriousness in the air, and sometimes you really just have to bend all the rules and let it all hang out. And here is more on Backwards Day. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. In our top stories, ECOWAS suspend Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso was on Friday suspended from the bloc of West African neighbor state in the aftermath of the last coup, making it the third nation in the regional alliance to be punished for a military takeover in only 18 months. The announcement from the Economic Community of West African States comes a day after more than dozens of mutinous soldiers went on state television in Burkina Faso to announce their military takeover of the country that is already under siege from Islamic extremist attacks. If no other sanction, then the suspension of the country was decided. Ghanaian chairperson of ECOWAS regretted a spate of coups in the region. After the visit of an ECOWAS defense chief delegation, a ministerial mission is expected in Ouagadougou on Monday. A new ECOWAS summit on the situation in Burkina Faso will be held in Accra in February. More sanctions may be announced in that occasion. The crisis in Burkina Faso and its ramifications and deteriorating political situation in our region should be a matter of great concern for all, said President Nana Akufo-Addo.
Now in our second story, DR Congo issues death sentences to murder of UN experts. For murder of UN experts. Dozens of militia members have been sentenced to death in the Democratic Republic of Congo for their involvement in the murder of two UN experts, Swedish-Chilean Zaida Catalan and American Michael Sharp, who were abducted and killed in the Kasai region in 2017. They were investigating alleged mass graves after fighting broke out between government forces and a militia group. Their interpreter, Betu Chintela, was also killed. Their bodies were found 16 days after being kidnapped. Out of the dozens of defendants, 51, almost all militia members, were sentenced to death. But as DR Congo has declared a moratorium on executions, the sentences will likely end up being life imprisonment. The guilty verdicts were handed down by a military court at the end of a 4-year trial. They had faced a variety of charges, from terrorism and murder to the act of a war crime through mutilation, the AFP news agency reports.
In our next story, South Africa hails new COVID jab planned in a fight for self-reliance. South African-born billionaire Patrick Soon-Shiong at the coronavirus warehouse on an industrial estate in Cape Town launched a project he believes will be a considerable step in Africa's struggle for vaccine equity. Within a year, it is hoped that the empty building will be a hive for industry with a workforce of up to 600 people intent on producing the first entirely African-made COVID-19 vaccine. We want to manufacture this in Africa for Africa and export it to the world, Shiong told Al Jazeera. He hopes the facility, which will be run by Nanta SA, a company he established last year, may be able to produce as many as 1 billion doses per year by 2025. The project is the last in a series of initiatives seeking to redress Africa's reliance on the West for vaccine, a problem that has been laid bare during the COVID-19 pandemic.
In our next story, Rwanda to reopen Uganda land border after 3-year closure. Rwanda said on Friday that it will reopen its land border with Uganda after a 3-year closure, a major breakthrough in efforts to repair ties between the neighbors. The move followed a visit to Kigali by Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni's powerful son Muhoozi Kainerugaba, and Rwandan President Paul Kagame pledged to restore relations. The border between the two East African nations was abruptly closed in February 2019 as political tensions between Kigali and Kampala spiraled, devastating two-way trade. Rwanda abruptly closed its border with Uganda in 2019, accusing Uganda of abducting its citizens and supporting rebels seeking to topple Kagame. Rwanda's foreign ministry said in a statement that the main Gatuna border post would reopen on January 31. We can see the two governments are trying to create a new direction after a long standoff, and a few roadblocks have been removed, said Ugandan security analyst Fred Egesa.
In our next story, 2 burned, 30 houses destroyed in gas lantern taker explosion. 2 persons were burned beyond recognition, over 30 houses and properties worth millions of naira destroyed following an accident involving a liquefied petroleum gas tanker and a granite truck in Ohoro Community, North Local Government Area of Delta State, Nigeria. It was gathered that the accident occurred about 3 a.m. when the granite truck rammed into a station LPG London tanker. A source said that the granite London truck was heading towards the port from when the driver rammed into the stationary gas London tanker and in the process collided with other tankers, which ignited the fire, killing the driver of the LPG tanker, his conductor, and over 30 houses and property razed. A victim of the incident said that he heard a loud sound and then saw fire everywhere. We have no option but to run for our dear lives. Nothing was rescued except for the clothes we were wearing, he said.
Prosecutors reveal confession of alleged parliament arsonist. The man suspected of starting a fire that gutted South Africa's parliament this month, Zandile Christmas Mafe, confessed to the crime after he was arrested inside the historic building in Cape Town on charges of terrorism, robbery and arson. The suspect, who is believed to be homeless, appeared in a Cape Town court on Saturday for a bail application. According to an affidavit given to investigators immediately after his arrest and read out by the prosecution in court, Mafe said that it was the right thing to put the parliament on fire, as at the moment it is not helping the people of South Africa. He then went on to explain that he had acted to prevent President Cyril Ramaphosa from delivering a speech to the nation scheduled for February, as well as to demand his resignation, the release of the murderer of an anti-apartheid fighter, and 1,500 rand in aid for all South Africans with no income. Defense lawyer Dalim Pofu said that Mafe underwent mental health observation and was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia.
In our next story, 2 million people in Tigray are in urgent need of food, says the UN. Aid worker call for humanitarian pause so crucial supply can be delivered. After first assessment of the region since war broke out, at least 2 million people in the northern Ethiopian region of Tigray are suffering from an extreme lack of food and the 15-month conflict between the rebel and government forces pushing families into the brink, the UN's Emergency Food Agency found. In the first comprehensive assessment the World Food Programme has carried out in Tigray since the start of the war, 37% of the population were found to be severely food insecure, meaning they had at times run out of food and gone a day or more without eating. Families were found to be exhausting all the means of to feed themselves, with 13% of Tigrayan children under 5 and almost two-thirds of pregnant and breastfeeding women suffering from malnutrition. The assessment, which was based on face-to-face interviews with 980 households in accessible parts of Tigray, was carried out from mid-November until mid-December.
In our next story, at least 2,000 displaced after M23 attacks. Ongoing clashes between the DRC's army and fighters of the terror group M23 have resulted in forced displacements. Ongoing inhabitants from 6 villages in the Democratic Republic of Congo's east have fled clashes between the Congolese army and M23. Last week, a fresh attack carried out by the M23 targeted a Congolese army position in the territory of Rutshuru, just north of the city of Goma in eastern Congo. An estimated 2,000 people, like Sarah Kasigwa, were left homeless and traumatized. We saw several dead people, the 29-year-old mother says. I lost my children and my husband in the chaos, and I've been left with nothing. The M23, which also calls itself the Revolutionary Army of Congo, is a former rebellion group of Congolese previously backed by neighboring states.
In our next story, the Santos and clique are still appearing in leaks. Powerful Angolan political figures accused of embezzling millions of dollars can now be linked to at least 20 or more secretive companies in the United States and other tax havens, exposing new financial hideaways of the impoverished African countries' former ruling elites. Isabel dos Santos, the daughter of former Angolan authoritarian President Jose Eduardo dos Santos, along with former senior presidential advisor and generals, owned offshore companies and bank accounts in Europe and the Middle East, leaked records from the Pandora paper investigation shows. Angola is a resource-rich country, but the majority of its people live in poverty, prevented from accessing health, education, and decent life conditions because of people who take the country's wealth as their own, said Karina Carvalho, Executive Director of Transparency International in Portugal. The International Consortium of Investigative Journalists revealed that dos Santos, once touted as Africa's rich woman, built her estimated $2 billion US fortune on the back of insiders deals with the help of shell companies and an array of Western lawyers, accountants, and wealth managers. The Luanda League investigation showed how dos Santos gained access to lucrative deals involving oil, diamond, telecoms, and supermarkets, often courtesy of government decrees signed by her father. She also benefited from insider deals, preferential loans, and contacts held by public money. Dos Santos said that all the allegations against her were false.
Now, in the last of our top stories, we're talking about Liberia's prisons, where inmates are short of food, space, and uniforms. When the food ran out for inmates at Liberia's main prison earlier this month, it exposed the terrible conditions that have long existed in the country's jails. The lack of supplies affected all of the country's 15 prisons, forcing 2 to stop taking any new inmates. At Monrovia Central Prison, about 1,400 people are crammed into a space that was initially built for less than 400. Now, the National Director of Prisons, Sainlese Kwaida, blamed the shortfall on delays in the government releasing funds that should be supplied monthly. The last batch of prisoner uniforms supplied by the UN was more than 10 years ago. As I speak to you, we escort prisoners to many of our prisons on motorized tricycles, he said, which do not have doors and are not ideal to transport convicts. Justice Minister Frank Musadin, who is responsible for the penal system, told the BBC that the government was aware of the scale of the problems because they had been highlighted in an official audit. All right, that brings us to the end of our top stories. Now, as a filmmaker, I've always loved the use of drone technology. Not so much loved it when it's used for war, but now how about drone technology to deliver medicines? We'll be talking about that after the break. Now, razor-sharp technology is revolutionizing how quality healthcare can be both accessible and affordable. Founder of the telemedicine company, Dr. MacQGP, and public health expert, Dr. Armid Azadeh, chat with Ogeto Craig about, amongst others, the use of drones to deliver medicine to far-flung areas. Have a look.
Good morning, Africa. How are you there? My name is Ogeto Craig. I'm a journalist with Republican and Namibia Media Holdings. With me today is Dr. Armid Azadeh. Good morning, Doc.
Morning, Ogeto.
You are a doctor and a serial entrepreneur. What kind of doctor are you?
So I'm a general practitioner, but I specialized in public health, and I've been working in emergency medicine and doing a little bit of business now as well.
Okay.
Innovation.
A little bit. Africa is known for its widespread and scarce populations. How does this affect service delivery in relation to medical services?
So if any of you have ever been around the country and lived in a remote part of Namibia, you'll realize that if something goes wrong, there's really no resources in place.
Yeah.
And this is where telemedicine came about, especially in Canada, where there's also very sparse populations, spread out. They use telemedicine to bring some sort of health resources.
What is it, telemedicine?
So telemedicine really is just practicing medicine, but over a distance. And then you need sort of what they call ICT, information communications technology. So whether it's a phone, a video connection, whatever, to help with that conversation, to have some sort of medical help.
And you provide such a service?
So we started with that 9 years ago in Namibia, looking at, in the tourism sector, remote communities, how do we bring health within reach?
What's that called?
So that's called Dr. MacQ, is our telemedicine service, and our company was Macquarie Medical Care. So this is something we've seen in Namibia, is that reaching those far off places is always a challenge.
Yeah.
And that's when this drone company approached us for this project, and that's what's so exciting right now.
Yeah, a drone will soon be used to distribute medicine. Please share how this will work.
Okay, so the company is called Swoop Aero, and they've been doing this also for 4 or 5 years. They're already in 7 African countries. The way they work is it's a self-unmanned drone that flies with GPS coordinates and coordination, and just sends information back to the sort of the hub operator and the pilot. But it's pre-programmed, so it will fly a specific route and land at a certain spot. And what's amazing about this, it can carry 3 to 5 kilograms of load, and it can fly over 100 kilometers just on battery power. Extremely safe. It's pre-programmed. It just flies with wind, without wind, with rain. They've been operating in the DRC, in Malawi, Uganda, with more severe sort of rain climates as well, quite successfully.
Wow, when do you think it might kick off here in Namibia?
So the project has already been awarded. We're now just waiting for the actual rollout. Getting all the different stakeholders involved. We need to start with getting the drones in, testing them, getting the civil aviation licensing, and then really hiring the local team that is there to take this forward and actually keep this going after this project ends.
Excellent. And are there plans to expand to other countries?
So the company already is planning to expand to other countries. What Macquarie's role now is to try and see, are there other uses in Namibia to maintain this network? So, to set up all of the infrastructure does cost a little bit upfront. Luckily, this is now being sponsored by sort of non-governmental money or sponsor money. But thereafter, it's to look at other private, public sector use cases to then maintain this network so that we can keep these drones, providing these services.
Yeah, and perhaps even expand here in the country.
And expand definitely across other regions of the country, because if you look all over the country, really there are underserved populations, underserved communities.
And for MacQ, is there a restriction in terms of if you're in Zimbabwe, can you still access that service?
So right now, Dr. MacQ is available in Namibia, and we are looking to expand our services across country as well. We've looked at, tourism sector, but now we're also working in the mining sector, manufacturing sector, transport logistics sector, so truck drivers having access to a doctor wherever they may be along the route, and that's expanding our services across border.
Yeah.
So we are definitely moving in that direction.
And I also saw that you were in some pharmacies. How does that work?
So the pharmacy network is essentially our consumer-facing product, where anyone can go to one of our 8 pharmacies currently in the country, and you can get a telemedicine kiosk and have a consultation with a doctor right there and then, and get your prescription at the pharmacy. So it's a very convenient, it's more cost-effective, it's for medical aid as well as cash patients as well.
Excellent. Is it very expensive?
No. It's about half of what a normal consultation would cost.
Wow, wow. What a marriage between medicine and technology.
Exactly.
All right. Is there any last word you want to say?
I think this is a great synergy because our motto is bringing health within reach. And if you look at the telemedicine model now with a drone application in terms of logistics delivery, it's a perfect marriage in bringing health within reach.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And thank you very much. That's all we have for now. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, so many things have been happening in Zambia, and Mike Situla has all these stories from the heavy downpour of rain to so many other things. So Mike Situla, please take your stories, and thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Mike, sorry, we can't seem to hear you. Could you just check if you're unmuted, Mike? Okay, we're having issues, Mike, so we're just going to take a short break and then we'll come back to you and just try and take this conversation again. We're still looking forward to having a chat with Mr. Mike Situla, but in the meantime, NMH journalist Octavia Tibes speaks about the rollout of vaccines in Namibia as it relates to children and adolescents. She further engaged a learner in Botswana to share the insights on the effects of COVID-19 and the vaccination rollout. Have a look.
Hi viewers, my name is Octavia Tibes, and I just want to talk about the rollout plan that the Ministry of Basic Education has in Namibia regarding the vaccination of Namibian learners in schools. As we got that circular from the ministry, we had a few concerns from parents as to how will it work, what vaccine should the learners take, and of course as parents they were concerned and reached out to the media. So just to break down as to what this circular means to Namibia is that children from the age of 14 have the consent to get vaccinated, right? And the vaccine that they can take is the Pfizer vaccine. The Pfizer vaccine is the only vaccine that is compatible for learners, children to use above the age of 14. Why the Pfizer vaccine? Because it is compatible if you have underlying illnesses such as HIV and AIDS or even asthma. That's the vaccine to go for. It is very important that we encourage our children and our families to get vaccinated to achieve a herd immunity within our society.
Hi everyone, my name is Junior Chupiro and I'm from Botswana. The outbreak of this dangerous and deadly COVID-19 pandemic impacted the education system of Botswana negatively. As students, its arrival in 2020, it meant that we had to go on lockdown for the first time. Basically, in 2020, there was not much of learning going on because we had to go on lockdown several times. And on top of that, students were in quarantine, isolation, back-to-back quarantine and isolation due to this virus. So basically, the education system of Botswana suffered a lot. Not forgetting the issue that teachers lost their lives. That means we suffered heavy losses due to COVID-19. Therefore, the education system of Botswana was impacted negatively. Right now, the situation in the education system of Botswana is that students are receiving their first doses of the vaccine. I believe that every school in Botswana now, the students are receiving their they are receiving their vaccines, and the vaccine rollout is still going. I, as Junior Shapiro, am really encouraging students to receive their doses, because it's our last hope. These are the only chances that we have for us to fight the virus.
As you heard from Jopiro, a learner from Botswana, he also shared what's happening in Botswana. So there you have it, Namibia. If you have any further questions, you can just leave it down in the comment box.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now our correspondent Mike Sichula is ready to deliver a comprehensive report on Zambia. Mike, we are excited to hear from you. Please take it away.
Mike, could you try and take the earphones out? We can't seem to hear you clearly.
To hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please do continue.
Okay, yes. So, like I've said that the tropical storm Anna was earmarked to pass through Zambia, and it did pass through Zambia. It started from the eastern part of Zambia, going into Lusaka Central Province, as well as Western Province. So in the pictures there, that's what some of the destruction that has been caused in the Eastern Province, where some houses were blown off, fields were destroyed, and in Ndola on the Copperbelt Province, there was a heavy, those are the pictures from Ndola. There was a heavy downfall in the central business district. Most of the shops were flooded, and the situation was also the same in the capital city, Lusaka. In some densely populated areas, they were flooded. Houses, some of the houses were just too flooded, such that the occupants had to flee by way of going by the rooftop. So the destruction is quite bad in terms of to property, but in as far as any loss of life, so far authorities have not indicated any loss of life. Then moving on, I move to my second story, where President Hakainde Hichilema has projected that Zambia is on course to achieve a single-digit inflation by the end of the year. So what the president is saying is that Zambia, because of during the week, the Zambia Statistical Agency informed the nation that the rate of inflation for the month of January has reduced to 15.1% from 16.4% recorded in December 2021. So the president is basing that the attainment of the single digit will be as a result of the ongoing microeconomic stabilization program that has started yielding results. So he is projecting that by the end of 2022, Zambia should attain a single-digit inflation, which is going to help citizens have a stable and predicted prices of goods and services and increased purchasing power. So according to economists, they're saying this is a wait-and-see situation, considering that the price of fuel is going up, the price of electricity is also earmarked to going up, how this attainment of the single-digit inflation is going to be achieved. Then in my third story, the recruitment of 30,000 teachers has somewhat been put on hold, not until 150 stored school infrastructure projects across the country are completed. The Zambian government, using the 2022 national budget, has earmarked to employ 30,000 teachers. And you also need to be aware that in Zambia, there are more than 60,000 teachers who are trained, but they do not have employment. So a number of teachers are expectant that the recruitment of 30,000 teachers is going to actually give them employment. But however, this is not likely going to happen in the first quarter of this year, because government is saying we need first to complete 150 stored school projects across the country. But unions are saying this is more or less like the government is trying to draw back on what it has promised. And in my last story, a sports story, the Zambia national women's team has begun preparation for the 2022 Morocco African Women's Cup of Nations qualifier against Namibia, which will take place on the 16th of February 2022. So the Football Association in preparation has confirmed that the Copper Queens will play in an international friendly match against South Africa at Nkorama Stadium in Lusaka on the 12th of February 2022, before taking on a trip to, before Namibia comes to Zambia on the 16th of February 2022, and Zambia is supposed to travel to Namibia on the 22nd of February 2022. So this is a match that I believe Aina and Asri, you have to watch, as the Copper Queens, Barbara Banda is going to come to Windhoek to see if Zambia is going to beat the brave gladiators there in Windhoek.
I have to say, Mike, I was just thinking to myself, listen, if Namibia wins, we will send you Windhoek draft. If Zambia wins, you send us Mosi Laga. Yes. I think it sounds like a friendly enough bet. Thank you, Mike, for bringing us the news stories from Zambia.
That's a good deal. Thank you very much, and Africa, good morning to all our viewers.
It's always good having you here. Yes, of course, you are on Africa Good Morning, and we know you are wishing for a fantastic day. So check out our weather forecast up next. Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. It's time for your economic news stories, and we start off in South Africa. COVID hits taxman deep in pocket as tax collection shrinks. According to the 2021 Tax Statistics Joint Publication of SARS and the National Treasury, the severity of the contractions in tax revenue was clear across all tax types, but more severe regarding domestic taxes and taxes on international trade linked to economic activities that were most affected by lockdown measures. A total tax revenue collected by SARS increased from 1.144 trillion rand in 2016-2017 to 1.249 trillion rand in 2020-2021, and therefore grew at a compound annual rate of 2.2%, significantly lower than the compound annual rate of 9% in the previous 5 period from 2011 to 2012 to 2016-2017. The largest sources of tax revenue were still personal income tax at 39.1%, corporate income tax at 16.4%, and value-added tax at 26.5%.
33 successful bidders lose FG Marginal Oilfield Awards. A total of 128 awardees that emerged as successful bidders of the 2020 Marginal Field Bid Round have made complete and part payments for signature bounces in oil fields, the federal government said. It also disclosed that 33 awardees did not make payment during the 45-day window given to successful bidders to pay the required signature bounces for the oil fields, and as such had lost their awards to suitably qualified reverse bidders. The government further disclosed that it had so far gained about 174 billion naira from the Marginal Oilfield Bid Round program. The Nigerian Upstream's Petroleum Regulatory Commission Executive Chief Bega Komolafa said efforts were being made to close the bid round and that the commission would support successful awardees who have paid the required signature bounces.
Airtel Africa enters into UK's FTSE 100 index. Airtel Africa has been included in the FTSE 100 index, which includes the top 100 companies on the London Stock Exchange, with effect from January 31, 2022. Through its mobile telecoms and mobile money services, Airtel Africa PLC now has over 122 million subscribers across the 14 African markets in which it operates. Airtel Africa was floated on the London Stock Exchange in June 2019 and has since demonstrated significant growth in its customer base, revenues, profits, margins, and cash generation. Commenting on the latest development, Seguno Ogusanya, CEO Airtel Africa, said he was immensely proud that Airtel Africa will be joining the FTSE 100 only 2.5 years after it was listed on the London Stock Exchange.
Sulfur bloom detected at Walvis Bay. The Namibian Dolphin Project at Walvis Bay has warned beach visitors and residents of the town not to collect fish that was washed offshore. This was a result of a sulfur bloom that is occurring at Walvis Bay, which causes low oxygen in the water, and as a result the fish are washing ashore where the oxygen is. A sulfur bloom occurs when hydrogen sulfate erupts from decaying plant on the sea floor. Chelsea Kowalczyk, who is part of the project, says it is not advisable to consume the fish because it is not clear what killed them or what caused them to wash ashore. The sulfur could have a potential impact on the operations of the Erongo desalination plant, which operated by the Orano Mining Namibia and is one of the suppliers of the water to coastal town mines. The company is monitoring the bloom as it can damage the delicate and intricate membranes used in the desalination process.
All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Up next, Economic Indicator. Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. It's time for your sports news stories with Ari Hochad. Ari, I know you're obviously going to talk about Ashley Barty and her historic win at the Australian Open. But before that, the word that's buzzing around Africa, AFCON. Please do take your stories.
Yes, very good morning, Ashwin and everybody. Yes, busy sporting weekend. There's lots happening, and AFCON is the big news for Africa. Our African soccer tournament was proudly hosted in Cameroon. Just news from that, Cameroon, the host, beat Gambia. That was the first game, the first quarterfinal, 2-0. That was on Saturday, and Burkina Faso beat Tunisia by 1-0. Also yesterday, the games played yesterday, quarterfinal, Senegal beat Equatorial Guinea by 3-1. And then Egypt beat Morocco, a tight game in extra time by 2-1. That means the semi-finals are going to be played. There's the results on the screen. But the semi-finals will be played on Wednesday. One of them, the first one will be Burkina Faso that will play Senegal. and then a big game on Thursday with Egypt that will play against the host Cameroon. So the final will be on Sunday, the 6th of Feb. So lots of good soccer to look forward to. Semi-finals, Burkina Faso, Senegal. Thursday, it's Egypt against Cameroon. So then on to the tennis news that you talked about. Big results for Ashley Barty. Lots of pressure to win in your home country. The significance was for Ashley Barty to win the Australian Open tennis was that she's the first Australian in 44 years to win the Australian Open. There's Ashley Barty proudly holding the trophy. Ashley Barty, she beat Danielle Collins of the USA. Also a tight final, 6-3 the first set. The second one, she was behind 5-1, came back 7-6. She won the second set. She won in 2 sets. Great win for Ashley Barty, the first Australian to win her home nation win in 44 years. Yesterday in the men's final, it was an epic final. It was one of the best major finals in many, many years. It went on for more than 5 hours, and that's the winner. That is Rafael Nadal. Significant win for him. He beat Daniil Medvedev in a very tight and tense and long final in 5 sets. Rafael Nadal lost the first 2 sets and then won the last 3 sets, 6-4, 6-4, and then the fifth set, 7-5. Significance for Rafael Nadal, he becomes the first player to win 21 major titles, beating Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer, that's still on 20. And that's Daniil Medvedev. He did very well. He won a major before, but he lost in the final this time in the Australian Open. On to some golfing news. There was some few tournaments played around the globe, one in Europe, one in the USA. Let's start with the one in Europe. It's the Dubai Desert Classic that was played in Dubai, of course, and it was a playoff. It was Victor Hovland that won. That is Luke List. Is the Farmers Insurance tournament played in the USA, and it was Luke List. That's the winner there. He won in a playoff against Will Zalatoris. The total was 15 under par. John Rahm was second on -14, but in the playoff it was Luke List that was the winner. Then the Dubai Desert Classic, it was Victor Hovland that beat Richard Bland in a playoff. It was a tight finish for everyone. It was Justin Harding there in action of South Africa that was leading after 3 rounds, but he fell back a bit. He finished on -8. The winners on -12 was Victor Hovland and Richard Bland, or the leaders. Then Victor Hovland, he won in a playoff. And then lastly, also on the ladies PGA Tour, or the ladies European Tour, it was Lydia Ko of New Zealand. She's the world number 3, and she won the Grainbridge Ladies PGA title, that is in the USA. Sorry, but she finished with a 69 for a total of -14. Great golf by Lydia Ko of New Zealand. On to some cricket news, and there's cricket happening all over the globe. There's also cricket happening in South Africa today. That is the ladies team of South Africa playing the West Indies team. Their game on Friday rained out, so they play again today, the second ODI at the Wanderers, and that's in 2 hours' time at 10 a.m. Then also in Australia, it was the ladies' Ashes, the women's Ashes between Australia and England that ended in a draw. But first, that is New Zealand men playing the England men. A tight game yesterday, but the West Indies beat England by 17 runs yesterday to win that series. West Indies 179 for 4, and then England 162 all out. And quite significant, Jason Holder of the West Indies took 4 wickets with the 4 last balls of the game. That doesn't happen too often, 4 consecutive wickets. And then in the ladies' Ashes in New Zealand or in Australia, it was the 5-day test that ended in a very exciting draw. It was England that needed 257 to win. They ended up on 245 for 9. And the 2 teams also play a 1-day game, 3 one-day games starting on Thursday. Then just lastly, quickly to finish with rugby, it was the Blitzboks, the South African rugby team, the Blitzboks that won the Seville Sevens series. And firstly, that is the Sharks playing the Stormers. That was the United Champions League. It was the Sharks and the Stormers that drew that game 20 all. And then the Bulls, they beat the Lions by 34 points to 10. And then in the sevens, it was the Blitzboks that beat Australia in the final by 33 points to 7. There's the Blitzboks. They beat Australia 33 points to 7 in the World Sevens Series in Seville. to win their 6th consecutive title. So that's all the sporting news. Lots to look forward to. Exciting football, exciting soccer to look forward to this Wednesday and Thursday Africa Cup of Nations. We talk again on Friday. Have a great day and a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Ari, for delivering your sports package. This is, of course, To Africa Good Morning. We'll be back with your headlines after the break. Africa Good Morning has been streaming live from 7 a.m., bringing you news stories stemming from the African continent and beyond. Now, if you perhaps missed our top stories at the top of the hour, or if you need a recap, worry not, here are some of the headlines. ECOWAS suspends Burkina Faso. DR Congo issues death sentences for murder of UN experts. South Africa hails new COVID jab plant in fight for self-reliance. Rwanda to reopen Uganda land border after 3-year closure. COVID hits taxman deep in pocket as tax collection shrinks. And in sport, Gambia lost to Cameroon and Tunisia lost to Burkina Faso. Those have been our stories.
We thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Africa Good Morning. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. That's at Africa Good Morning. We also have a website called OneUp2. Please do visit us for more content that you love to see. On that note, it's all our love, all our light.
Swear out, Manaka.